Hey, everybody. How's it going? I've got Terry
Hi,
Renner from
everybody.
Holding Your Space here. Hi, Terry.
Hey, how are you, Kim? Hi, everybody.
Good. I'm so glad we get to chat today. And Terry has been she's a guest reader with my club. She's been involved in lots of things, but I really am so excited to talk to you today about this topic about the dark night of the soul, because I've gotten a lot of, and hello everyone, sorry, hello. We're running a little late, so I'm just trying to move it along, but hello everybody, thank you for being here. I've gotten tons of messages, tons of comments about people going through dark nights of the soul to different degrees.
Yeah.
And for those who are unfamiliar or don't exactly know what they hear that term, but they're not really sure what that is, a more secular term for it is an existential crisis. That's basically what it is. And what usually brings it on is when you have decided the world works a certain way, or there are certain things that you can always count on, and then something happens to shatter that. You move into a dark night of the soul because those things that you thought were going to always be there, or those things you thought were solid and you could count on them, they're suddenly not, or they're not as they're not as you can't count on them like you thought you could. That starts this kind of what is real? What can I count on? I can't count on anything. Nothing's, everything's going crazy. I can't handle this. Is there a God? Does he even care? But you go into all of these, it really flips your world upside down, basically. And you start kind of grasping at what is going on here. And what it's supposed to do and what it does and why it even happens is to help us to separate our consciousness, our spirit self, from our ego self, the mind constructs, because it reminds us that nothing here is permanent. Nothing. The only thing that's permanent is the soul. That's the only thing that goes on forever and ever and ever. And it's a tool that is used here to help us to see that, to notice that, to know that. And there is a freedom in surrendering to that notion. It becomes inner peace, because there is also, when you have these moments and you're freaking out and everything's upset and you're just kind of like, what? When you come to that point of surrender, or that point of letting go, you find all of a sudden that in the Bible, it's called the peace that passes all understanding. That peace comes over you. And it's a deep peace. It's not this fleeting kind of joy or happiness or everything's okay right now. It doesn't have anything to do with what's out here. It's all internal. So it's a very profound spiritual growth experience. At least that's how I like to. It doesn't feel that way when you go through it. It does not feel that. It feels like you're so far away from spirit. It's that frightening feeling of separation. But when you can come to that kind of acceptance and integration point, however you get there, and we'll talk about how to get there, but that's the point where that huge step in growth comes. You find that inner peace, and there is something in you that shifts. And I just want to tell you, well, first of all, let me ask you, Terry, because I don't want to talk the whole time. Let me ask you, can you think back to because these can come through a divorce, they can come through a death, they can come by your own hand. Maybe you leave a job and you feel like, oh no, what did I do? I just left it prematurely. Why did I do that? And it can come, but usually most often when we're a very deep kind of dark night of the soul, it's thrust upon us. A natural disaster, something we didn't expect comes barreling in on things we thought were going to be permanent. Death of a child, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
So what can you say about this? And have you had your own dark nights of the soul?
Let's ask how many I've had, I think, Kim. So I feel like there's a momentum for me with Dark Night of the Soul from early childhood trauma, and then leading up to not leading up to, but this creates a course for your life that you look at because you think this is this, um, and perhaps you don't have tools to talk or whatever it is. And you lose that along the way, and you're kind of in that program, right? The program of life, and mine was kind of my husband died, and he had brain cancer. So before he died, he turned into a different person,
Mhm.
and it was just a lot of trauma for me and my kids and all of our friends. Like, it wasn't just me that was going through it; it was our community and my family, and so but it did change, and it changed all those relationships as time went on. And I did look at everything differently completely, and my kids did too. So, yeah.
And how did you well, first of all, let's dive in a little deeper, right?
Okay.
Because what did that dark night of the soul look like for you? Was it laying in bed at night and thinking what is going on? Was it, I'm never going to get through this? What form did it take in internally, like inside, like the things you would say to yourself or the things you would think to yourself?
I thought of everything that I had to do, and I don't know how I knew what I had to do, but, I had always we had our own business, and I'd always worked in the business, and I had to go in and take over the business, but I'd never run it. I was divinely guided through that. Like, I knew everything to do with the banking, I knew everything to do with the wills, I knew everything to do with the insurance. Um, I just processed. I was like a sleepwalker walking through it. Does that make any sense?
It does, because I was going to say that I think that when you come to that kind of that break with the ego, and you're completely focused in on the here and now, you're focused in on every single decision,
Yeah,
it is the most powerful place you can move from. And you're right. That's why you got the answers. That's why you knew exactly what to do. And I think in psychological terms or whatever secular terms, it might be called um, disassociation.
oh,
But
yeah,
all it is it's kind of a non-reactive, non-emotional kind of mode that you can move in. And that is your spirit. Your spirit is not full of this fear and emotion and, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Our spirits are so, there isn't, first of all, there's no fear, right?
yeah.
It's just complete consciousness. It's that observer in the background. And when you align with that, you're able to do things you never thought you could. And you're able to move through things. How did I know that? How did I know to do that? A lot of times people feel it when something shocking happens and they become very, very calm. And they know exactly what to do to call 911. All of a sudden, all of that training that they had, 10 years ago in their first aid class comes back to them because they are so focused in the present. And that is our most powerful place, is right here in the present. That's where all our psychic abilities are. That's where all the answers are. That's where all the connection is. And so that is the most powerful place. So I'm happy you're talking about this from the standpoint of, I was in this turmoil and yet I was made to make all of these practical decisions, and I was able to.
And, you're so right about that, and, on top of everything, Spirit gave me, or I gave me in my soul contract, perhaps, the opportunity to help my husband going through that, because he was acting out, from a brain tumor at the same time. So not only there wasn't a fear there, and there wasn't an anger there or a hatred or anything against him. It was like, helping him, helping everybody through the situation.
And
So,
when you take care of someone, and I'm so sorry that
oh, thanks.
you went through that, Terry. And I'm so glad you moved through it with such grace. I was able to find that grace peeking through and move into that. It's such a gift um, that you can't see in the moment, but that is that gift that you don't, you don't think it will ever come when you're in something like that. But I have um, taken care of people, um, and so I know what you're talking about. Taking care of people that are terminally ill, that are not going to get better.
Yeah.
And it is a strange mode that you move into, because a year or two or three before, you could never imagine yourself doing this or doing what you're doing and
Yeah.
getting through it and doing what you're doing and getting through it. Okay. Coping and that kind of thing it seems impossible. But again, I think when you're making decisions for someone and you're responsible for them, and it's moment to moment, day to day, where things could shift or change, man, do you become present. You become so present. And I think that is what gives you that, where the grace can shine through, but also what gives you that power um, to be able to maneuver and move through something like that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It really does. And it does, like, all your conditioned beliefs kind of do scatter and fall apart around you, because it's like, not only that, your identity does too,
Mhm.
because you're no longer, we're so tribal, and it's like, I am Terry, wife of John, mother of, my children. Um, and then all of a sudden you're just, who am I? Which is one of the best soul questions there is.
Exactly. And you can take a swig of your mimosa, because I'm about to say Eckhart Tolle, but he does talk a lot about that breaking down of that construct, that the concepts that we fill ourselves with, that I am this, I am this, I am this, and it makes us feel safe, right? We know
Yeah.
who we are. I know I'm a mom. I know I'm a wife. I know I'm this. I know I'm that. And when one of those things is taken away abruptly, or it's going to change, it changes abruptly, whether it's, I'm an engineer and now I got fired and I'm not an engineer anymore. So what am I? Because I was sure that's what I was. Same with mom, or same with,
Yeah.
what am I now? What, and he does say that is just exactly what you said. He always says, I always congratulate people when they ask that, to say that I don't know who I am now, or I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
That's a congratulations, because you're moving towards your eternal self. Basically, you're letting go of this temporary, coat that we're all, whatever you want to call it, a coat, a meat suit, or I hate that expression, but whatever you want to call this temporary self that we only use to move through this environment. That's all it's used for, really. But we add in all these elements to make us feel like, okay, we're safe, and we're at least I know this. And then when something happens to, oh, no, you don't know that. And that now that's gone. And now, now who are you? And it is this constant push from the universe to remember who we really are. And in that, ironically, there is no fear. When you realize you're an eternal being, a multidimensional eternal being, it really does change the way you live.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because I think sometimes people, including myself, get to a certain point where you think, well, I'm pretty enlightened. I feel like I'm enlightened. And then you hit a dark night of the soul out of nowhere. Last week, with the death of Navalny, I felt like, and it was kind of like, in the background was Israel and the turmoil in Gaza, and in the background was the stuff with not being able to get aid to Ukraine. All of these things, and it was almost like the last kind of, I would say, nail in the coffin. It was just like this hit that I just thought, I don't do I belong on this earth? Because I feel like I'm way too sensitive to be here right now. Is this a mistake? Because I feel like somehow I don't belong here. This is just too ruckus and crazy. And I went through, it was kind of a mini dark night of the soul, but it still was that. It was still like, should I even be doing this? What am I doing? Why am I here? Am I even helping? Everything's so crazy. It was just this role of, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then what I wanted to bring in was the next thing I wanted to talk about was that I realized that the answer is surrender. And I just kind of opened up and let in the notion that I'm not meant to fix everything and control everything while I'm here. That's not my job. My job is my bit. What is my bit? My bit is making sure that my own relationships are in order, that I am loving the people around me the best way that I can, that I forgive people that have hurt me, that I step into action in ways that make sense, that I can help in some way. Being here today, right? That's my bit, right? And that's what I'm meant to kind of focus on and responsible for, and surrendering everything else to them doing their bit, rather than me having to go around and fix everything because everything's out of control. And that release and that surrender, to me, it was the fastest way to get to the other side of the dark night of the soul, is just, you're right. I can't control any of this. And here I am, but I can do my bit. And that's the truth of the matter. So what do you think about surrender as a tool? And have you used that tool before?
Oh, yeah. So, that's a big one. And when you said you knew you didn't have to do it, my heart was just like, whoosh, big breath of wind. But
and that's what it felt like. It just felt like that, the release of everything. I could physically feel it. It was like it just went off. It was just this, like a heavy weight that just left.
Right. Yeah.
Or it could be a dark energy that just left, right? Because that's where all the dark energy is, that fear and that foreboding and that weird, stuff that comes in. And when you let that go, it just does kind of evaporate.
Yeah. I agree. And there's a lot going on. I think a lot of people here are going through that too. Because there's all these things popping up, right? I'm in Kansas City, and we had the shooting at the parade, and my daughter was there.
That's right.
So that was a huge deal. And it's all of a sudden, the first thing I do is clench, and pull in my energy, pull in my friends, pull in my loved ones, ask for help. That's huge. Meditate on it if you can, or dance on it. Get some energy in there. But for me, surrendering is always releasing. And the way I release, this is weird, but I know that I've done it in many lifetimes, is I float and I change my story. So I kind of float in the in-between, and it's like, it's always in water. And then there's the sky above me, and I'm looking at the sky and I'm floating in the water. So I know that I've done this in so many lifetimes, and I have a hot tub, especially for that. So that's the physical way I release. But letting it go is really looking at, like, changing the story of it. Like, yes, this is what happened. And not repressing it, and not saying, oh, nothing happened, she's fine. And, because people were hurt, and people were hurt emotionally. But looking at it and thinking, well, okay, this situation happened. Is it true? Yes, it's true. Will everybody go on and be injured for life? No, that's not true. Will people grow from it? Yeah, many will. And so changing my story and being curious about it, I think, is one of the emotional things that I do that really helps.
And I love that. Because how is your daughter doing? Okay, or is she kind of still working through it?
Yeah, my mom's on the other side, and she's been really busy. like she got a job at a spa, which is very healing. She's
Wow.
starting a massage therapy school. And so it's just all these healing things have come in.
How interesting.
Yeah.
And that first part you're talking about where you're kind of like, okay, let's see what is true and what is not true. That brings you into that place of kind of acceptance of this happened.
Yeah.
This happened. And so, and now what? We've talked about that before as being kind of coming into acceptance of what is happening or what has happened. And it's so key to moving on, to getting past it. Because if you're just like, no, this shouldn't have happened, and this shouldn't be happening, and this never should have gotten, and believe me, I've walked down that road too, but that is a road
Oh,
to
wow.
nowhere. It's kind of like it keeps you stuck for
Yeah.
longer and longer and longer. And I love that you moved right into that. Okay, this happened, so now what? Now what are we going to do? Because you can't move beyond it. You can't move forward really until you've accepted this. Okay, this is where we are. Otherwise, you're in that resistance state.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just fighting with it, right?
Right. If you react in fear, which is natural, and that's the way our bodies are made, um, then in our but it's not the way our spirit's made. And so reacting in fear is such an earthbound thing, but it's okay because that's what's kept us safe as a species, right? That's how we've gotten ahead or still here,
Mhm.
perhaps. But recognizing it and seeing it and then being curious about the fear. Well, what is it that I fear here? And is that a natural reaction? Yeah. Should I shake? Should I do something?
Right. And I love too that you brought in the physical, and that the
Mm.
idea of floating in a hot tub or floating in water, even just visualizing that, it literally is lightening you up, right?
Yeah.
It's taking away that heaviness that can really drag us down.
Yeah, and I see that in meditation too. I see that as kind of that in between, that space of silent awakening or um, pure consciousness, where you're just watching, watching awareness, or awakening awareness, witnessing awareness. That's what I
Right,
wanted to say.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring in I'm going to kind of go up and bring in some of the wisdom because I just keep seeing things in the chat. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so profound. But I wanted to bring this question from Care Bear. How cute. Terry, I resonate with a lot of different ways with your story. Did you find you had to push your grieving process aside too? She did with her dad. It came in waves later, but it's when and that's a great point, that when you're kind of just dealing, and you're kind of in the moment, right here, right now, and dealing with more of the tasks, kind of the
Yeah.
doing, and getting through that. How did the grieving process come in? Did it come in while your husband was still here? Did it come in afterwards? When did the grief process kind of start to move through you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. It did come in later, the grieving process. And I went to a hospice and did the group class and everything, and I was meditating and whatnot, but I was still kind of holding on. And then I decided, because it hurt so bad when it came in, that I decided to make grief my friend, which is a weird way to talk about it. But I invited it into, I've got a sunroom that has it used to be a white sofa. It's gone now because it's no longer white, but this really comfy sofa. And I would give grief Netflix. I would give grief a glass of red wine. I would give grief a cup of tea, but I did, when I felt him coming in, it was like, kind of like, okay, you're here. Let's go for it. And I had that space. So I guess everything's pretty physical, isn't it, that I've done? So, but it's led to the emotional and the spiritual
But
part of it.
that makes such sense to me though, because that's the part of you that's grieving, that human part. Your
Yeah.
spirit knows different. Your spirit knows that we don't lose contact at all.
Yeah.
It's a physical body that changed and then left. But we stay connected. It's that we have to learn now how to connect in a different way.
Yeah.
And I've used my dad as an example that sometimes, not always, but sometimes if somebody had kind of a lot of barriers or emotional barriers, when they pass, your relationship can deepen and become way more intimate than it was when they were here, because they're all accessible now. Whereas here, in our physicalness, we protect ourselves, and we protect ourselves emotionally, and we can put up walls. And when your body is no longer there and that fear is no longer there, everything comes down, and they are completely accessible. But so I love that you're talking about this as kind of a physical thing. And I think, I think sometimes that, particularly more with men, I think that the physical act of crying and that it can be like a guttural cry when you're really, really missing somebody, and that they're not here anymore. It can just be that it comes from it's very animalistic in a way. It's that cry that you don't even recognize in yourself. And when that happens, you realize it is the physical self. It's the physical self really reacting to all of this. And so I love that you honed in on that. And a lot of the thing, and crying, what I was going to say is that crying is one of those things that I think we resist because it shows we're weak or we're delicate or something. And no, it's part of that. What is it? That letting go, or that I want to say like throwing up, but it is like that. It gets trapped in you, and you need to break it up and let it out. And then that makes that space for that grace, that healing, all of that stuff that can come in. But I totally agree with what you're saying, that you have to honor that physical part and let it come out in whatever way it needs to.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because it is such a body, mind, spirit thing, isn't it? And for me, don't get me wrong, that white sofa got a lot of tears on it, and screams and cries and whatnot. And then eventually, as I kept welcoming it and saying, okay, let's go. Here we go. I got your spot, it was like an old friend coming in. Like, I know you, I know who you are. I've felt you before. I'm aware of you, I guess. So, yeah.
Right. I love that. I did a video on healing. I didn't expect to catch anything. I always film orbs all the time. It's just like what I do. It's what I do now all the time. And I was filming, and I thought, I'm going to ask for healing because I feel like I don't know what to do. I feel so sad and so stuck after my mom passed. And it was a similar thing where it was the doing. And then afterwards, the grieving. But I felt like, and you can see the orb swooping through me and swooping in and swooping. And I was literally just like, help me to work through this grief, because I don't know how at this point. And I could feel this kind of building in my like chest and throat. And I just started to sob. And that it really was what started the moving forward through the grief process, rather than just being stuck. And really all they were doing was like, you have to cry, you have to let it out. And also when you get in that caretaker position, I don't know about you, but I felt like I needed to have a smile on my face, and I needed to be strong for them. And I needed to show them that I was going to be okay, and they don't need to worry. Everything's fine. Everything's good, and make their passing as peaceful as possible. And with that comes a lot of stuffing down.
Yeah.
Did you find that as well, that you were kind of having to be Mary Sunshine most of the time?
Kim, I didn't even think about this until you started talking about that. But so I was running the business during this time too. And
I don't know how you did it, Terry. I really, honestly, that's amazing.
We were in a construction type business, and my licensed surveyor besides my husband was a woman, and I didn't tell anybody for a year that John had passed, or maybe 6 months that he had passed, my clients,
Oh my.
because I was the only woman owner in my city, number
Mm.
1, and a lot of guys wouldn't have cared, and some of them knew and they were cool,
Uh-huh.
you know, because they were, friends of friends or whatever. But I couldn't if somebody called up and said, "Can John do this job?" I was like, "We can do it," and, took over. But, yeah, I didn't let people know that that happened. So I was totally in that coping mode for a long
Right. Yeah,
time.
that
Yeah.
and it's I think it is helpful for um the person who is passing to see that you're okay and you're smiling, and it gives kind of a comfort, I think, in a way to them, even if they're, my mom was declining in her uh, mental capabilities as well, but I think just seeing somebody smiling, it on some level she knew, okay, everything's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that is us trying to give them that peace.
Yeah.
um, and but with that, we're paying a price as well, because we're kind of stuffing everything down, and at some point it has to come out, and like you said, the physical stuff, it needs to be presented and let go of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big process. Um, and then I suddenly realized I didn't really need the business anymore. And that was kind of an awakening too, that, I had other things going on that I could do, and I didn't have to maintain that old family business, and I could move on and do something else. And I was like, "What? I can let go of that? Are you kidding me?" So that
Wow.
was
And
huge.
what was that decision like? Because I would imagine if it was his thing, or
Yeah.
his and the family thing, that there would be some, I don't know, like fear or guilt or whatever comes up when you're kind of letting go of something like that. It's good for you, and it's like, oh yeah, this is great. But did you go through also kind of that? Will they be mad? Are they going to be okay? What did that decision look like? Because that, again, that's another kind of thing where it's like, I thought this thing would always be here, and now you're, like I said, you can bring it on yourself sometimes when
Yeah.
you let stuff go. And so what was that like, or was it just like, yay?
Uh, it was kind of all of the above. It was like, um, who am I without that? Again, who
Mhm.
am I, right? If I'm not
Yep.
this and have this. And, it was really hard, and at the same time, it was really freeing because, I mean, I don't know how people do it that have kids and they're working full time, and, you gotta run them to the office or run them to the doctors, and, it's a lot to maintain all that, and to be a single parent is a lot, so I give so much respect. Um, and when I decided that I didn't have to do that anymore, that I had another opportunity, the first thing I did was go to the Chopra Center in California and take a Healing the Heart, um, course. It was a little retreat that they do. David Simon wrote the book, and he and Deepak, and,
Oh, wow.
so it was the next step in, awakening.
If you hadn't, if things hadn't happened the way that they did, would you have started a YouTube channel? Would you have started this, or even thought of doing this?
No, no way. I don't think so. I mean, I meditated since I was a little kid, and I taught before metaphysics, but, um, no, I came full swing back. I mean, my kids had been involved in, Catholic schools, and, my community that I was in at that time was, very tied to the church, and they were beautiful people, and they
Right.
very supportive. But as I became a single person, and, everything changes, all those relationships changed, and you look
Yeah.
at everything again, and you're like, okay, this is going to be different, and let's go for it.
And
So,
as humans, we a lot of times, I mean, it's so impressive again that you didn't cling, because I think sometimes when things happen, we tend to cling to what's left, and now this cannot change at all. So a lot of, especially a lot of women of a certain generation. I know my mom did this when my dad passed. It's like, I'm never gonna marry again or meet anyone again. She was young actually when he passed. It was when he was 67, which isn't very old now. That's
not.
he was here for another 20 years, and it was like, I'm not gonna open that door at all. I'm not gonna I'm just gonna devote myself to my family and just be with them, because this was so devastating that I need to keep this right here with me. I can't let it go. They can become, and again, I saw this more with some of the women in older generations, really holding on to what's left because this thing happened. And losing a spouse is it's a different kind of passing. You expect your parents to go, you expect certain things, but it's losing a spouse, especially you're a young woman too, Terry. So that is that is a lot. But how did you keep from clinging to, like, I need to keep this house, and I need to keep these friends, and I need to keep this business, and I need to keep what was the process that you went through, knowing I can let this stuff go, that it's okay?
Wow, I never thought about that. I think part of it's dumb luck and part of it's spirit. So, these opportunities arose and I was like, "Okay, I can do that." And, and part of it was, those people were turning away from us too, not just me, but my children,
Right.
because we no longer fit the mold, and it was a very it was a pattern that everybody wanted. They wanted this pattern, to be in the community. We weren't there. We were way outside the box because not only have we passed, but or he passed, but, he passed with a lot of drama.
Mm.
Um, and then, at the same time, um, one of our best friends down the street, or one of my best friends, our best friends actually, the whole family, um, they lost their son in a car accident. And it was a car accident. We had a little cabin at the lake, and we heard all the sirens, and we heard all the helicopters come. We were down there, and they didn't have a place down there at that time. And so it was like another weird thing, right, that we were tied to. And so it was like, it wasn't just my life that kind of exploded, it was also my best friend's life and my kid's life, because they grew up with this guy. So, this young man, and it was like, "Okay, what else you gonna throw at me?" So, but, it was a lot going on, and, I don't know what the question was at this point, I'm sorry, I pitter-pattered there.
No, no, no. It's just about, how did you know not to cling to stuff and to kind of let things move on, basically let things change and move. Because sometimes when you lose someone, you tend to cling to what's left. But it seems like you kind of embrace that letting go process of letting go of the business, and letting go of some friends, and letting go of, you know, yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
all the question was, but yeah.
I think it was totally, getting involved with people like you, people like everybody here in the chat. I just became really intrigued by getting back to my roots and meditation, and I got really involved with the Chopra Center, became a teacher. I was driven. It's like, how when there's a force behind you and you're like, "Don't slow
Yeah.
down now."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is, and I think when once people get to the other side, and I'm sure you have felt your husband kind of cheering you on, and go Terry, yay.
I would go to psychic fairs after he passed, and everybody would say, "Who's that guy behind you?"
Yeah, I remember I saw him in one of our classes. I'm like, there's a man behind you, and I could see it so clearly.
Linda sees them all the time too.
Yeah,
Along
it's
with her.
it's so interesting. Oh, Kat, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of go and just get some of this wisdom from our wonderful family here, because they've just been sharing up the storm. And I think this is resonating with a lot of people, because whether it's the stuff in the world that's hitting us on a daily basis, and that can cause real, it can cause sometimes it can cause apathy, but it can also cause that helpless feeling, because we can't control everything, and we don't have a lot of say in most things. And so it is again, that surrendering, I really, realizing you don't have to fix it. It isn't for you to fix. Otherwise, you'd be in a position to fix it.
Yeah.
No, you're not. but just realizing I just have to do my bit. What's my bit? What's my stuff going on? So Gina says the old mystery schools tried to artificially create the dark night, and you go in and out of the dark night too. And I know what she's talking about. This kind of, it is like an artificial bringing on that feeling of kind of having to let things go, basically. This is what I wanted to read, but yeah, thanks for that, Gina. But Gina also said, to me, the soul speaks in the comforting voice of love and peace, and the ego yells with fear and foreboding.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to know too. A lot of people will say, I've got I'm really worried about this trip, and now I'm thinking, should I not take it? Is something going to happen? And the way you know what's your mind and what's spirit is that spirit, even when something's going to happen, even when something may go wrong, your spirit is never going to bring it through with fear. What will happen is you'll feel like, for some reason, I just feel like maybe I should wait and take this another time. It won't come through a fearful, whatever, a fearful voice. It will come through. Even I always use the example of if say you had a high probability of getting into a car accident, you'd hear something like buckle your seatbelt or brace yourself. It would not come through as seeing car crashes in your head and people yelling at you, you can't go this morning, it's not going to come through in that way. It's going to be the spirit's very practical, and it's not fear-based at all.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Oh God, yeah. Even I was pulling out of a parking lot not long ago, and somebody got in my way, and I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? You think these things. And then before I pulled out, they kept me from pulling out. 5-car crash, like just right there where I was going to pull out. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's so true. And Mountain Sunshine, that you're saying that Kim, one of my best friends in the world, passed away this morning, and deeply knowing that our souls live forever has brought me such comfort. Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And when things happen so suddenly like that, and they take us by surprise again, it can be that my equilibrium's off. The world is turning upside down. I don't even know how to, respond or react to this. But yeah, it's in those moments where you start to, it can bring on that kind of what's going on here. And the idea that you're watching this and you're here today hearing these things, it's not an accident, right, Terry?
Yeah.
You're meant to hear these things to help you navigate this.
So sorry for your loss, Mountain Sunshine. Yeah, that's so tough. Be really gentle to yourself. And when you're ready, talk to somebody that's, well, not just a therapist, but somebody, if you want to, an intuitive too. So Kim does amazing mediumship.
And that's what so much of this is about, whether it's making a prediction or it's or mediumship, the orb mediumship that I'm doing. It's, you can see it with your own eyes. You know that everything's okay. We're all okay. We all go on, and everything is fine. It really, really is. We're having an experience, and it's so obvious that it's for our growth. It's for our spiritual growth. We're not just here we're not trapped here. We're not, doing this because we're all masochists. It's, we're here because we want to grow. And it's so obvious that things like this push us in ways we did not think we could be pushed. And it makes us reach places in ourselves we didn't think we could reach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. And I love that your mediumship now has that physical component.
Right.
I mean, I think that's huge. And I think this is going to be a way of the future, especially going into, the new energy, the divine feminine 5D, that your orbs, I think, that's so reassuring for people. And I know for me, Mountain Sunshine, it was so important to have people say, who's that person behind you? And knowing, that other people felt that too. So
yeah. And it's interesting because I think you're right. I think that physical component, because I've done mediumship before, where it's more traditional mediumship, kind of mental medium. I don't know what you call it, mental mediumship, or that kind of mediumship. And what I have found with this is that it really like injects the whole appointment, or the whole time we're together, with joy. It's really strange. There isn't that kind of lacing of sadness that you can sometimes get with a traditional mediumship, which is also wonderful, and it's also validating. It's amazing that people can. It's a miracle. It really is a miracle that people can do that. But it is weird that because of the physical component, it changes the whole the dynamic or the feeling of it. It's very interesting. I wasn't something that I didn't. Yeah, it's just strange. It's just something I've noticed, and I'm like, gosh, these appointments are really happy. They're really unbelievably up. And I think it is that, like you said, kind of that physical component that's added in.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
We're on a physical planet, so it's such a 3D thing right now, but it's changing. And I love that.
It is. So Holly says, I feel like so many of us have had dark moments in our lives. These moments bring us into the new place we have begun to realize.
Yeah, Holly.
Yeah, it is so true.
Yeah, I feel like we were all type A's on the other side, and we made this soul contract when we came in, right? You're going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and you're going to do this, and so yeah.
I think that's so true. And like I said, I think it's kind of like when you order, the biggest thing on the menu because you're starving, and then you eat like this much of it. I think it's like that on the other side. We make all of these plans, and we're like, I'm going to do this time. I'm going to do this time. I'm not going to forget who I am. I'm going to know exactly what I'm doing. And we have all these these big ideas, and then we get here, and it's so dense. And and we forget how hard it is. And we forget that we forget, and all of these things that because it is such a short period of time. In this big scheme of things, I think we're kind of bigger than our britches. Our eyes are bigger than our stomach. We feel like we can do all this stuff. And so we'll just start throwing now, and I'll do this and I'll do this. And we get here, we think, why is this all happening? Why is this happening? And now this is happening. And I think it is, you're right. I think we make these contracts, and we have these big ideas that we want to make all this progress. And we forget that it's hard. It's really, really hard. It's a hard it's a hard university to be in.
It is hard, and I feel like it's going to be really hard for the people coming in, not behind us or below us or anything, but the people that maybe aren't as aware as people here in the group, and that to witness and to be in awareness and to meditate or whatever you do, dance, paint, that puts you in that spot where you can kind of just witness things and watch them, because there are so many things going on.
Well, and I think that we see a lot of these, and I don't know that they're all young souls, but I think we see a lot of behavior that could be young soul behavior where they really cling to the ego,
Yeah.
where they are super, they want all the money and they want all the stuff because it makes them feel like, okay, now I'm safe, I'm insulated. If I have money, nothing can hurt me. If I have, whatever, if I'm completely controlling with my environment, I know that everything's good. But even those people are being cracked open. The thing that they're clinging to the most is being taken away. And some of the,
Yeah.
and like the bigger profile people that we know, and it's all, it's a learning process. So when people are so clingy to earthly stuff, you have to think that there's something going on there. Either they wanted an extreme experience, and so they gave themselves all of these real difficulties to work through, mental and emotional difficulties to work through, and that's the form they take, or they're new here and it's scary and this place is scary and they feel separate for the first time, or they haven't felt this separateness like this before, and this is the form it's taking. It's taking this form of clinging and holding on to every little thing, especially material things, because I think those are the most unimportant and the most like passing things. They don't last. They're just passing through. And I think when you cling on and you want to just keep it, it does show something about maybe where you are, on the maybe if you're a new student or an old student, that could be a clue, right?
I think it's a big clue, and it's just kind of built on itself, hasn't it? Like, everybody drives a Land Rover, everybody has this big, huge house or whatever, and then you look at billionaires building bunkers, and so it's just kind of fed on itself until it's
Yeah.
like in our face, where we're like, I don't want that. That's crazy stuff.
Right.
Or people have a special line to be in because they have a gold card or they have this, right? And they're better supposedly than the people that stand in the longer line. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
It doesn't. And I think that, when you start to, and part of the process of becoming enlightened is being very aware in the moment of your own behavior and your own reactions to things. And I think that you're right. There's something about, you can see, oh, that billionaire shooting themselves into space again. What are they doing? What are they trying to do? What's going on? Or shooting them into the ocean, the bed of the ocean. What is going on here? And when you can observe even like the little things, oh, this brand is popular and, oh, I want that brand. Well, why do I? Is it important? Is it, when you can do that kind of self-examination, constantly, you're helping yourself to not be in a trap like that at some point. But I think with people like that, like they must be so I'm saying unenlightened, but they're so not connected really to their spirit self. There must be such a divide because they don't even stop to think, what the hell am I doing? Why do I have all this money in the bank? There's no way I can spend this in a lifetime. What am I doing?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they stopped to do that. And if they did, they would maybe start giving it away or start, you know what I mean? It's like, there's not that like self-examination.
Yeah. There's not as much compassion anymore. They're like, they've just weighed themselves down. And we think we
Yeah,
want that sometimes, the lottery or whatever, and, but it ruins people for generations, so it's not. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that have gotten through it and done well and helped others, and there's certainly billionaires that help others, but, it's interesting to watch. But I
it really is.
don't
Yeah.
you feel like the new kids, they're coming in, the new kids, the next generation, like Kathy and Inga and everybody that are coming in, Eric, and it's like, they're not falling for it.
Right.
They're
Right.
they're just not.
They're connected in a way that is just different, and they're also their priorities are completely different.
Yeah,
Maybe because they've had to be, but they are their priorities are completely different.
yeah,
They aren't really for the you know the expensive this or expensive that. Not that there won't be people in that generation that are, I'm sure, but it's more about experiences. They're not so much with the big house. They just want some kind of roof over their head. It can be a van, it could be a tiny house, it could be, living in a garage or turning they're extremely creative too. That's the other thing is I've noticed about this generation coming up. They're not bound really by any societal norms. They really are such a creative bunch,
yeah,
thinking their way into new ways of doing things.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be really interesting to see, what they do with all this because, I feel like they're gonna, people talk about no eye contact and how they're always on their phones or whatnot. I feel like this has heightened their awareness and their, to some extent, their, intuition, that they feel people around them. They feel what other people are feeling. Um,
Well,
anyway,
that's a really
I think.
interesting approach to that. I've not heard that before, Terry. I like that. I like that. It makes them, it forces them into a different kind of connection, right? A different kind of
Yeah, through the
connection.
frequencies.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's so interesting. I love that. I wanted to just kind of, and thank you so much for doing this, Terry, for sharing so openly. I
Oh
think it's
gosh,
so
yeah. No,
important.
this is like therapy, you guys.
It's like
Thank you
therapy.
all.
It's like we're all getting therapy. Yay. Um, I'm going to read the surrender card from my deck, but I wondered if you would pull a card, Terry, if you have your
Oh
cards
yeah,
there.
I'd love to.
Um,
My face.
and I also wanted to give you a couple of surrender quotes that I found that I thought were just really a good way to, because I think surrender, sometimes people can think it's giving up or it's like letting life wash over you. But surrender, to me, it really does take a lot of trust and strength to be able to let go, because I think the fearful thing is to cling on, to have to hold everything to you and to try to control everything. And when you can let that go, it's a different kind of strength, and it takes a lot of trust in
Yeah,
the universe, in God, in in source, whatever you want to say. It is that opening of that trust that all will be well. So surrendering is about, this is the first one. It's by Melody Beatty. Surrendering is about releasing the need to control and finding peace in the present moment. And the other one is surrender. I think this is anonymous, but surrender is practicing acceptance on what you cannot change. I think that's, yeah, I think it's apt. But so go ahead and what do you have, Terry, for this
I got,
week?
celebration, and this angel is just, opening up, surrendering, letting it all out there, and I pulled another one, and it was trust, so right when you were talking about trust.
Yeah, this is, and I feel like this week, uh, I feel like it's going to be a lot of similar stuff where you're going to be like, what in the world? What is going on? I did want to say though, Thursday night, I did see uh, Well, looked. I'll just tell you that how it looked to me and how it really looked. But I saw the United States, along with other countries, dropping packages into Gaza, like care packages into
Wow.
Gaza, and they did that, I guess, yesterday or the day before. But and they showed like these kind of gray parachutes kind of going in, and for me, it was like these bright colored balloons. When I saw it, it was like these bright colors balloons dropping in, um, and so, but it happened the turnaround was so quick that I feel like um, my guides, and probably your guides too, everybody, is that they may be giving us things that we can more quickly validate because we need it right now. There's this feeling of just upheaval and not really knowing. And I feel like when our guides kind of do that, because some of this stuff, it's been like 2 years ago we saw this and now it's happening right now. So it's like, okay, it's just kind of a while, but okay. But when they give us these things that are easy to validate quickly, I feel like it's because we need that right now. It's a way of giving us kind of a feeling of that the universe is always working for us. It's always with us. It's always working for us. It's always surrounding us with the love and the help and the assistance we need. We need to just open up to that, and not put so much on our tiny little selves.
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
That
it's
we have.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
I love that because you know, I know that the energy is gonna come in really fast, but I hadn't really thought about it, um, as far as manifesting, that's gonna be really fast too, but I feel like it is. We're all getting things, so quickly, and I'm glad that Gaza's getting things quickly.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And I think just like, I know when I've talked to Andre, who does the astrology alert, that he's talked about the planets when they come in, there's always a positive and a negative. We tend
Yeah.
to look at the negative because we are that way, with, Mercury retrograde, but that's also what brings in a lot of new technology and new ways to use things and things like that. But just like you said, everything you brought up, the kids looking at the young people today looking at their phones only, and how that can bring in a completely different way of connecting on a whole new frequency, like you said. But there's always a positive and what we deem as a positive and a negative, or a yeah, that's how we see it, right? Positive and negative.
Yeah.
But that there is that, there's always the positive. So, and you're right. Things that are moving fast, it seems like, we can't keep up with the news. We can't keep up with the conflicts and all of these things. But with that fast moving time and space, you're right. Manifesting is going to be off the charts. So start manifesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Get your
Yeah.
story out there, what's real and what's not, that
Yeah,
or
exactly.
what matters to you and what doesn't.
So the surrender, and so the picture on the surrender card is that letting go of all that, letting the universe work for us. Today, my prayer of intention is to surrender to each moment. May I be completely accepting and welcoming of people and circumstances that come into my life. And it's another part of surrender, right? Is welcoming whatever comes, whether it's for some kind of lesson, or because it's new and it's coming across our path for a reason, and recognizing that and surrendering to that, not just staying in our own, I just have this group of friends and I just have this, place that I go, and this, being kind of open and surrendering to life in that way, I think is so, it's key. It's key to helping us grow and change, right?
Yeah. Take them to your sunroom and your once white couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. And I wanted to just quickly tell people that I'm going to be going to England next weekend. So if you want cards, if you want to get my cards, do it in the next couple of days, because while I'm gone, I'm going to be gone for 2 months. So I'm not going to be able to send any cards anywhere. I'm not going to have my stuff. And so just an FYI, if you don't want them, don't worry about it. But if you do, or if you've been putting it off, think about it unless you want to wait a couple months, and that's totally fine. It's up to you. But I just wanted to throw that in there
Oh,
before I forgot. Well, thank you so much, Terry. It's so fun
thank
to talk to
you.
you, and you're always full of wisdom and light and calm. And I know I appreciate it, and I know that everybody else does. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody here.
Yes, thanks everyone for sharing your Sunday with us. I hope this helps you get a tune up for the week to come, and a spiritual tune up. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll be on the plane next weekend, which again, traveling is always a great place to practice surrender, right? Because it's just
It is.
one of those things.
You're flying. What are you going to do?
Exactly. But we'll see you in 2 weeks, and we'll be back with a new episode. Okay.
Okay.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.